Imagine flying at 700 miles per hour, just 18 inches away from another aircraft. One slight miscalculation, one moment of distraction, and disaster strikes. Now imagine doing this without looking at a single instrument. This isn't science fiction. This is the reality for the elite pilots of the United States Navy's Blue Angels. What drives these exceptional aviators to abandon the very tools designed to keep them safe? The answer reveals one of the most fascinating stories in military aviation history, a tale of extreme human performance where trust replaces technology and where the margin for error is measured not in feet, but in inches. Today, we're taking you inside the cockpit of America's most prestigious flight demonstration team to uncover the surprising truth about why Blue Angels pilots never look at their instruments during performances, and the extraordinary methods they use instead to achieve the impossible. The Blue Angels represent the pinnacle of precision flight. Their breathtaking maneuvers have captivated audiences for decades, but behind those perfect formations and split-second timing lies a counterintuitive approach to flying that defies conventional wisdom. While commercial pilots and even regular military aviators constantly reference their instrument panels, Blue Angels pilots deliberately focus elsewhere. This conscious decision to ignore their instruments isn't reckless, it's essential to their survival and success. If you agree that the Blue Angels represent American excellence at its finest, type BLUE in the comments. Background and history. The Blue Angels were established in 1946, just after World War II, when Admiral Chester Nimitz ordered the creation of a flight exhibition team to maintain public interest in naval aviation. Named after New York's Blue Angel nightclub, these aviators quickly became ambassadors of American air power, demonstrating the capabilities of both their aircraft and the men who flew them. From their first aircraft, the propeller-driven F-6F Hellcat, to today's FA-18 Super Hornets, the team has continuously evolved. But one thing has remained constant throughout their 75-plus-year history: their unique approach to formation flying. The Blue Angels aren't just performing aerial stunts. They're showcasing the pinnacle of naval aviation training, discipline, and teamwork. Their performances serve as powerful recruiting tools and symbols of American military excellence. Each year, they perform before millions of spectators, maintaining a grueling schedule of up to 70 shows in 30 different locations. The flying chair, training before flight. Before Blue Angels pilots ever take to the skies in formation, they undergo a peculiar training ritual known as the chair flying exercise. In a nondescript room at their training facility in Pensacola, Florida, 6 chairs are arranged in the exact formation the pilots will fly. Each pilot sits in their designated chair, closes their eyes, and visualizes every aspect of the upcoming performance, every turn, every throttle adjustment, every visual reference point. For hours, they sit motionless except for their hands, which move as if operating the controls. They verbalize radio calls and mentally rehearse emergency procedures. This seemingly simple exercise is crucial to developing the mental discipline and muscle memory needed for their dangerous profession. Former Blue Angel pilot Commander Frank Weiser explains, "Chair flying builds the neural pathways we need before we ever leave the ground. When we're flying inches apart at hundreds of miles per hour, there's no time to think. Every response must be automatic." The flying chair sessions represent a fundamental truth about Blue Angels operations. Precision flying begins in the mind, not in the air. By the time pilots perform their first actual formation flight, they've already flown the routine dozens of times in their imagination. Why no instruments? The fundamental reason. So why do Blue Angels pilots avoid looking at their instruments during shows? The answer comes down to safety and physics. When aircraft are flying in tight formation, sometimes with wingtips just 18 inches apart, the pilot's attention cannot be divided. At 400 miles per hour, an aircraft travels nearly 600 feet per second. A single glance at an instrument panel, lasting just half a second, means traveling 300 feet while not maintaining visual reference on the lead aircraft. Commander Gil Rudd, a former Blue Angels flight leader, once explained, "In formation flying, your life depends on maintaining constant visual contact with your reference points. Looking inside the cockpit, even for a split second, can lead to catastrophic consequences. This approach runs counter to how pilots are traditionally trained. Standard aviation practice emphasizes constant instrument cross-checking. But Blue Angels pilots must unlearn this foundational skill and instead develop complete trust in their formation leader and their own sensory perceptions. The physics of close formation flying creates another compelling reason to avoid instruments. When aircraft fly in tight proximity, they experience complex aerodynamic interactions. The wingtip vortices, swirling air currents generated by each aircraft, create unpredictable forces that instruments cannot adequately measure or predict. The only reliable way to navigate these invisible currents is through feel and visual positioning. External visual references, the Blue Angels method. Instead of instruments, Blue Angels pilots rely on precise external visual references. These reference points form the foundation of their formation flying technique. For the pilots flying in the diamond formation, everything centers on the lead aircraft, flown by the squadron commander. Each pilot focuses on specific points on the lead jet. The right wingman aligns the lead aircraft's wingtip with a specific screw on their canopy rail. The left wingman does the same, but with a different reference point. The slot pilot, who flies directly behind and below the leader, uses multiple reference points to maintain proper position. These reference points must be maintained with absolute precision. A deviation of even a few inches can disrupt the entire formation and potentially lead to disaster. Captain Katie Higgins, the first female Blue Angels pilot, once described it as flying in a constant state of awareness where your entire world becomes that one specific point on the lead aircraft. For the solo pilots, who perform the high-speed passes and dramatic opposing maneuvers, different visual references come into play. They use ground landmarks, the horizon line, and occasionally each other to coordinate their precise timing and positioning. This reliance on visual references extends to the team's takeoff. As the jets thunder down the runway in formation, each pilot is already locked onto their visual reference points, not their airspeed indicators. The lead pilot makes the decision to rotate based on feel and experience, and the formation rises as one. The physical demands and G-strain flying without instruments is just one of many challenges Blue Angels pilots face. Perhaps the most physically demanding aspect is dealing with extreme G-forces without the benefit of modern G-suits. Most military fighter pilots wear special suits that automatically inflate around the legs and abdomen during high G maneuvers, preventing blood from pooling in the lower body and maintaining consciousness. Blue Angels pilots, however, cannot use these suits because the sudden inflation would cause unintended stick movements during precision formations. Instead, they rely on a technique called the G-strain maneuver, forcefully contracting leg, abdominal, and chest muscles while controlling their breathing to prevent blackouts. During a typical show, pilots must perform this exhausting technique dozens of times while simultaneously maintaining precise formation positioning. Lieutenant Commander Eric Doyle explains, "The physical strain is immense. You're essentially doing an intense full-body workout while simultaneously flying inches away from other aircraft, and you can't let up for a second." This physical challenge highlights another reason instruments become secondary. During intense G-forces, clear vision becomes difficult, and trying to focus on small dials and screens is nearly impossible. The external visual references on other aircraft provide larger, clearer targets for maintaining situational awareness. The selection process, finding the right pilots. Not just any naval aviator can become a Blue Angel. The selection process is extraordinarily competitive and seeks individuals with a rare combination of flying skill, temperament, and communication abilities. To even be considered, pilots must have logged at least 1,250 tactical jet flight hours, carrier qualified on the FA-18 Hornet, an impeccable service record, demonstrated exceptional flying abilities. But technical proficiency alone isn't enough. The Blue Angels team looks for pilots who exhibit a particular psychological profile, confident but not arrogant, analytical yet instinctive, and capable of both leading and following with equal skill. The ability to fly without referencing instruments factors heavily into the selection process, candidates must demonstrate comfort with formation flying and the potential to develop the specialized skills required for Blue Angels performances. Captain Ryan Bernacki, a former Blue Angels commanding officer, notes, "We're looking for aviators who can adapt to a completely different way of flying. Many excellent pilots struggle with the transition from instrument-based flying to the Blue Angels method. It requires rewiring deeply ingrained habits. Once selected, new team members begin a 2 to 3 year tour, with their first year devoted almost entirely to mastering the team's unique flying techniques, especially the art of flying without instruments. If you value this content and want to help us continue honoring these remarkable servicemen and women, please consider supporting us on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Your support allows us to go deeper into the stories that matter and bring you exclusive content about America's finest. Thank you for helping us keep these important traditions and stories alive. The communication system. While Blue Angels pilots don't look at their instruments, they aren't flying in silence. A sophisticated communication system enables precise coordination throughout their performances. Unlike the radio chatter found in regular military operations, Blue Angels communications are streamlined to essential information only. The formation leader provides brief, standardized commands that signal maneuver initiation, power adjustments, and formation changes. These communications follow a rhythm that becomes second nature to the team. For example, when initiating a roll, the lead pilot will simply say, "Ready, now, on, now." All pilots simultaneously roll their aircraft with precision timing. The communication protocol also includes breathing cues. During high G maneuvers, pilots can hear each other performing the controlled breathing technique necessary for G strain. This audio feedback helps synchronize the team's physical response to G forces. Captain Jeff Kuss, a beloved Blue Angels pilot who tragically lost his life during a practice session in 2016, once explained, "The communication becomes like a heartbeat for the formation. It tells us when to breathe, when to move, when to adjust power. After months of practice, you begin to anticipate the calls before they come." This minimalist communication style reinforces why instruments aren't necessary. The lead pilot effectively becomes the instrument panel for the entire formation, providing the necessary cues through voice commands rather than digital readouts. The danger and risk management. The decision to fly without instruments isn't without risks. The Blue Angels have experienced tragic accidents throughout their history, including the loss of 27 pilots in various incidents since the team's formation. Each accident leads to intense scrutiny and procedural reviews, yet the fundamental approach of flying without instruments remains unchanged, because the alternatives could be even more dangerous. Commander Dave Koss, former Blue Angels leader, explains the paradox. What seems risky to outsiders, flying without instruments, actually makes our flying safer in our specific context. Formation flying demands undivided attention outside the cockpit. Dividing that attention increases risk rather than reducing it. The team employs multiple safety systems to mitigate risks. Among these is the crucial role of the Blue Angels safety officer, who observes every practice and performance from the ground. This experienced aviator monitors weather conditions, aircraft positioning, and overall safety parameters, providing an essential layer of oversight. During weather with limited visibility, shows may be modified to increase separation distances or eliminate certain maneuvers. In extreme cases, performances may be canceled entirely because without clear visual references, the Blue Angels method cannot be safely executed. This approach to risk management underscores a core principle. While Blue Angels pilots don't use instruments during performances, safety remains their absolute priority. Their alternative methods of maintaining situational awareness have been refined over decades to create redundancies that replace traditional instrument flying. Sensory flying, developing seat-of-the-pants skills. Beyond visual references, Blue Angels pilots develop extraordinary sensitivity to their aircraft's feedback, what aviators call flying by the seat of your pants. Without looking at altimeters or airspeed indicators, pilots judge their aircraft's performance through physical sensations. The vibration of the airframe, pressure changes on their bodies, engine sounds, and control responsiveness. This sensory flying requires thousands of hours to master. Pilots gradually develop an intuitive understanding of their aircraft's performance envelope, knowing precisely how it will respond under various conditions without needing to verify with instruments. Lieutenant Andy Talbot, a former Blue Angels pilot, describes it as becoming one with the aircraft. He explains, "You develop a sixth sense about speed, altitude, and positioning. The aircraft becomes an extension of your body, and you can feel deviations before you see them. This sensory awareness extends to detecting potential mechanical issues. Experienced Blue Angels pilots can identify unusual vibrations or sounds that might indicate a developing problem, often before warning lights would illuminate on their instrument panels. This heightened sensory perception represents perhaps the most difficult aspect of Blue Angels training. While visual reference points can be taught relatively quickly, developing true seat-of-the-pants flying intuition takes years of dedicated practice and thousands of flight hours." The psychological aspect, trust and team dynamics. Perhaps the most underappreciated aspect of flying without instruments is the psychological dimension, particularly the extraordinary level of trust required between team members. When flying in formation, each pilot literally places their life in the hands of their teammates, especially the formation leader. The decision to ignore instruments amplifies this trust, as pilots surrender individual control in favor of collective precision. This trust doesn't come easily. It's built through progressive training, beginning with basic maneuvers and gradually increasing in complexity and proximity. Behind the scenes, Blue Angels pilots spend countless hours together, developing the interpersonal bonds that make such trust possible. Captain Greg McWherter, former Blue Angels commander, explains, "The psychology of trust is as important as any technical skill we develop. You need absolute confidence that your formation leader will fly with perfect consistency and that your wingmen will maintain their positioning. Without that trust, the whole system falls apart." This trust extends to communication. When the formation leader calls for a maneuver, there's no questioning or hesitation, just immediate synchronized execution. This psychological alignment allows 6 individual pilots to function as a single flying unit. The team dynamics are reinforced through rigorous debriefing sessions after every practice and performance. In these brutally honest discussions, every deviation, no matter how small, is acknowledged and addressed. This culture of accountability strengthens the trust that makes instrument-free flying possible. Modern challenges. Flying Super Hornets. The Blue Angels' tradition of flying without instruments faces new challenges with each aircraft generation. Today's FA-18 Super Hornets feature sophisticated glass cockpits with digital displays that offer unprecedented information access, tempting pilots to glance inside. Additionally, these modern jets fly faster and generate greater G-forces than their predecessors, making precision formation flying even more demanding. The transition from the legacy FA-18 Hornet to the larger Super Hornet in 2021 required significant adjustments to the team's techniques. Commander Brian Kesselring, who led the Blue Angels through this transition, notes, "The Super Hornet brings new capabilities, but also new challenges. It's physically larger, which changes our reference points. It performs differently in tight formations. We had to adapt our visual flying techniques while maintaining our commitment to not relying on instruments." Despite these challenges, the fundamental approach remains unchanged. Blue Angels pilots still rely primarily on external visual references and sensory feedback, with instruments serving only as emergency backups. This commitment to tradition amidst technological advancement highlights something important about the Blue Angels mission. While they showcase cutting-edge aircraft, their performances ultimately celebrate human skill and teamwork over technology. The exceptions. When instruments are used. While Blue Angels pilots don't look at instruments during performances, there are limited exceptions to this rule. During transit flights between show locations, pilots follow standard instrument procedures. When flying through clouds or at night, they rely on their cockpit displays just like any other military aviator. The no instruments approach applies specifically to demonstrations and the practice sessions leading up to them. Even during performances, there's one pilot who monitors instruments more frequently, the formation leader. As the pace setter for the entire team, the leader occasionally references altitude and airspeed indicators to ensure the formation is flying at the planned parameters. However, even these glances are minimal and carefully timed. In emergency situations, all Blue Angels pilots immediately transition to instrument flying as needed. Every pilot maintains the ability to instantly shift between the two flying methods, a testament to their exceptional adaptability. Lieutenant Commander Brandon Hempler explains, "We train to seamlessly transition between visual formation flying and instrument flying if conditions demand it. It's like having two separate sets of flying skills that we can activate instantly depending on the situation." This flexibility underscores an important point. Blue Angels pilots don't ignore instruments because they lack the ability to use them. Rather, they make a tactical decision to focus externally during performances because it's the safest approach for their specific mission. Learning from the Blues, applications beyond air shows. The Blue Angels' approach to flying without instruments offers valuable lessons that extend far beyond air shows. Their techniques have influenced military aviation training worldwide. Regular Navy and Marine Corps squadrons have adopted modified versions of Blue Angels formation techniques for specific tactical situations. When fighter jets need to maintain tight formations while minimizing radar signatures or during aerial refueling operations, pilots often rely more on visual references than instruments. The Blue Angels' emphasis on developing sensory flying skills has also influenced military training programs. Modern fighter pilot instruction now places greater emphasis on developing seat-of-the-pants awareness alongside traditional instrument proficiency. Captain Ryan Bernacki notes, "What we do in the Blues has practical applications in combat aviation. The ability to sense your aircraft's performance without fixating on instruments creates better pilots overall. It's about having more tools in your toolkit." Even commercial aviation has been influenced by these techniques. While airline pilots primarily rely on instruments, crew resource management training now emphasizes the importance of maintaining situational awareness through multiple sensory channels, a concept pioneered by demonstration teams like the Blue Angels. This broader impact reveals something important. What might seem like a specialized technique for air shows actually represents a deeper philosophy about human-machine interaction that has wide-ranging applications. The Blue Angels' decision to fly without instruments during performances represents far more than an airshow technique. It's a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of human pilots in an increasingly automated world. In an age where artificial intelligence and autonomous systems are increasingly prevalent in aviation, the Blue Angels remind us of what skilled human operators can accomplish. Their ability to maintain perfect formation through visual references and sensory awareness, rather than digital readouts, showcases the unique capabilities that humans bring to flight. Commander Eric Doyle perhaps explained it best. When people watch the Blue Angels fly, they're not just seeing aircraft performing maneuvers. They're witnessing what happens when human potential is pushed to its absolute limits. That's why we don't rely on instruments, because our performances are ultimately about human achievement, not technological capability. As the Blue Angels continue to inspire millions of spectators each year, their instrument-free flying technique serves as a powerful reminder. In the realm of precision flight, the most sophisticated instrument in the cockpit remains the pilot. If you've enjoyed learning about the extraordinary skills of the Blue Angels, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you in-depth stories about American military excellence. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever seen the Blue Angels perform in person? Share your experience in the comments below.